All right, yeah, so my name is Steve Laura. This is going to be my talk. It's just going to go over some fun stories that I've had while doing some physical social engineering engagements. So let's get started. So, kind of in each part of the drinking latte, sitting in bathroom stalls and running from security guards. So each one's kind of a story, and it also has kind of like a tip along the way as well. So in this one, drinking lattes, my tip about blending in. So I got some kind of like tips along the way. So my story, obviously, all names and all that have been changed to, well, to protect me from a non-disclosure. But so in this case, social engineering, where a client asks to go undetected. So this is generally what, in my experience, what I would run into is that most clients, when we had a physical social engineering engagement, would be like, I would talk to them on a kickoff and they would say, you know, what do you want to accomplish from this physical social engineering engagement? And they would generally just say, well, we want to see if somebody could just get in without getting caught, right? So, kind of in my case here, drinking lattes. So, I like to drink coffee like a lot. So, I'll drink quite a bit of coffee, especially on a physical social engineering engagement. I'm like super nervous anyway. So, like, I'm drinking coffee like all day just to like give myself something to do, or else if I start thinking about things too much, I get too nervous, right? So in this case, right, I was a little out of my comfort zone because this specific story was a case where we had a startup basically. So they were a really small company. They were just getting started and they wanted a physical social engineering engagement because they didn't really have a lot of policies and such on physical security access controls. And so they were looking at it as, okay, if we got this pen test and we got completely wrecked, right? Right, we could use this to get our physical security stuff. So no pressure. So anyways, big city, go to it. And usually like the first day, what I like to do is kind of scope everything out, right? Scope everything out. And what I mean is like blending in is those cases is I want to know every detail. I want to know, what do people wear? Right? Do they wear jeans? Do they wear khakis? What would I be expected to wear? Those types of things. So that's what I want to do. I want to wear exactly what somebody would be expected to wear because I want to look like, and I've been told this, I don't know if this is necessarily a good thing, but most people have told me like you look like an IT person. I don't know if that's good or not, but it helps me blend in, I guess, right? So that's kind of my key is like blending into everything is I want to look like somebody who, and no offense to anyone who works in an office, but generally most people who work in an office go in every day and 90% kind of look like they don't want to be there. So I kind of like, I want to fit the part and I want to look the part, like I don't want to be there, right? So that's something that I'm doing. I'm looking at all the details, and I like to drink coffee. And in a majority of cases, I've just been like really lucky where there's like a coffee shop like right by the place where I'm gonna break in, right? So I can go in there and I can drink coffee for like an hour or two. And what I'm doing is really like I'm pretending to like be on my phone. I'm working on the computer, but what I'm really doing is scoping out people. I'm people watching. I want to see like, do they have a badge? Can I take a picture of a badge? Can I make After I take that picture, can I make like a fake badge? Where do they wear their badge? Is it around their neck? Is it on their hip? I want to look like what everyone else looks like, right? So in this case, I scoped everything out, and I was like, okay, I'm gonna go in and one thing I like to do too for blending in that helps is like I'll have a coffee in a hand and I have my phone in my other hand, so I have both hands full all the time. So people have to open doors for me, and they'll always open doors for me because my hands are full, right? So that's kind of like a trick that I always use. Is both hands are always full, so I go in and I'll scope things out and I'll pretend I'm talking on the phone and I'm looking around because I want to see. In this case, there was a guard by the elevator and there was a stairwell as well. So in this case, generally I spend like the whole first day like scoping things out. And in this case, somebody was just happened to go up the stairwell and you had to have a badge. And this is like probably my all-time favorite tip like ever. And somebody kind of gave me this tip a long time ago and it works like a charm, right? So like most places have like the HID badges where you hit the badge reader and you get the like beep, right? And you can go on Amazon and just buy like a HID badge thing. And when you put like take your badge and touch it to the badge reader, it makes the same sound, whether it's a real badge or your badge has nothing like printed in the badge itself. So honestly, if you use your badge and you go behind somebody and touch your badge to that badge reader, you will find that people are so preconditioned to hear that beep. As soon as they hear that beep, right, all their defenses just go like straight down, right? Like they don't want to tailgate. They're like really like defensive about you tailgating. But as soon as you touch that badge, it's like beep. Oh yeah, you're definitely one of us. Come on in, like. So in this case, right? So I scoped him out. I happened to like somebody was going up the floor, and in this case, it was a big city, and I could only test one floor of the building. So I had my work cut out for me, right? So I like happened to go up into the stairwell with somebody. I touched my badge while they opened the door and they let me in. And they happened to go to the exact same floor that I was supposed to go in. And I'm like freaking out and I was like, well, it's too early. I don't want to go in, right? So I didn't end up going in, but in this case, I scoped it out and I kind of like looked in, peeking in a little bit. Like, oh, they're like, are you coming in? I'm like, no, I have a phone call really quick, right? I'm like trying not to go in at the same time. So, anyways, like the next day, I like wake up and it's like pouring rain. I mean, like pouring. And I was like, oh yeah, this is awesome because everybody is like, when it's raining, everybody's in such a hurry. You would be so surprised. Everyone hates the rain, right? And they want to get inside. So I'm like going in with people. So I go in, I get my coffee, and then I'm like, okay, I gotta time it like just right. I'm like running across the street because I see somebody like getting ready to go into this building, and I'm like, I want to like time it just perfectly so I can get in behind these people, right? So I get in there and I ended up getting in the floor. So I like, and anyone who's done like a physical social engineering engagement, uh, I don't know how everyone else feels, but for me, like every time is like the first time, right? It's like every time I get in, my heart is like pumping out of my chest. Like I can't even breathe because I'm like so excited that like I got through that first layer of like, oh my goodness, I like broke in, like I'm not supposed to be here, but look at me, right? Like my heart just won't stop. I just feel like I'm gonna have a heart attack every time. So, anyways, like I get in and it's like 8 a.m. I walk in, I'm like, oh yes, I got in. I look and I'm like, oh my goodness, like I'm in trouble right here because it was like one floor, giant, like all open office. Like there's no dividers. Like there's like 50 people that sit in here and there's like 50 computers, no dividers. You can see from one end to the other. There's nowhere to hide. I am like freaking out at this point, right? So I'm like, oh man, I'm definitely gonna get caught. And I was like, what can I do? What can I do? I can't sit at a desk because it'd be like so obvious, right? Somebody's gonna end up sitting there. Uh, and I knew it was like kind of a startup, so I was like, oh, there's a couch. I was like, maybe I can sit on this couch and just kind of like blend in, right? So then I'm like freaking out. I'm sitting on this couch. I'm like, definitely someone is gonna catch me, right? So like an hour goes by, and I'm like, okay, I made it like an hour. I'm good, right? So another hour goes by, and I'm like, I think I'm safe. I think I'm safe. So somebody sits next to me on that couch, and I'm like freaking out inside, where I'm like, hey, what's up? Like, and they're like, hey, I'm like, okay, I'm good, I'm safe. Like pretending like I'm just sitting there like working, I'm hammering on my laptop. So, anyways, I'm like, I'm starting to calm down a little bit, and it's getting close to like 12 o'clock, which isn't a big deal if I like eat lunch or not, but I like have to pee so bad. I figure I've been like, I went and got coffee at like 7 a.m. It's 12 o'clock. I don't know where a bathroom is, right? This is like giant open like floor. I'm about to pee my pants, right? I'm like, I don't know where a bathroom is, but I don't want to get up and look because I don't want anyone to be like, dude, how do you not know where the bathroom is? So I'm like, I got to get out of here somehow. I'm like, okay, it's 12 o'clock. It might be okay if I go get lunch. But I was like, I want to be able to get back in at the same time. So I'm like, how can I get back in? So I'm like, okay, here's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna like walk and like cough as I'm like walking through the office so people will look at me and be like, oh, that's the guy in the blue shirt. Yeah, he totally works here. So I'm like coughing as I'm going. Okay, 2020, that wouldn't have worked, but at this time, it was like totally acceptable. Anyways, I'm like coughing, and the receptionist is there, and I'm like, right? Like, I walk out the front door, like, whew, I made it. I went to the bathroom, I came back, I totally made it back in, and I had to accomplish these like objectives, and I wasn't gonna be able to accomplish them like unless people were like gone. I had to get in like a server room and and such. And there's a lot more to this story, but I was saying I don't have so much time. So so anyways, I get there and I'm staying there and I work there. I stay there all night long, and I get in and I do all the bad things, right? And then the next day, I write up like my end of day, and I send it to my point of contact, and I'm back there at 8 a.m. again, right? I'm back there at 8 a.m. the next day, so I'm like, okay, it's almost about 12, but I knew where the bathroom was this time, so that was good. So it's like almost 12 o'clock, and I'm like, okay, I'm gonna start thinking about lunch here. I need a break, anyways. And then all of a sudden they start like setting up this like giant lunch, and like I said, like I was only allowed to be on one floor, but there was like multiple floors where people were working, and they had this big lunch and they invited like everyone. So there's like a couple hundred people on the floor at this time. And I'm like, well, why would I go out to lunch? I just like I work here, so I'm just gonna like chill and eat lunch with everybody. So I'm like in line. I actually saw my point of contact. I knew who he was because I saw on my LinkedIn like who he was and such, as I'm like checking him out. And I'm like right in line behind him and I'm like, oh man, I love Greek food. Isn't this awesome? He's like, yeah, this is like really good. I was like, yeah, I love this stuff. Like, try to like go out of my way to like, make a joke about it. He's like completely oblivious. And I'm like, man, I'm doing like a really good job of like blending in here, right? So like, so yeah, so I'm at the company lunch talking to people. They're like, oh, are you new here? Yeah, I'm totally new here. I work in the IT job. Like, everyone thinks I work there. So next day, I'm there like 8 a.m. again, like same thing. Like they're setting up food tasting stuff, and everyone's checking it out. So I was like, well, if everyone's checking it out, I should check it out, right? So I'm like looking at all the stuff. I didn't know the office manager was like setting up all this stuff. I thought it was just somebody who like worked for this food company. I didn't know, and like I'm sitting there like checking it out, and they took a picture of it. I didn't think of it, but I guess it was the office manager. I'm like, my face is like 50% of this picture, takes this picture, sends it out to the whole company over Slack, like, hey, come check out the food. I'm like right there in the Slack. My point of contact is like, this is the greatest thing that has ever happened. Like, we are going to get everything we need for our physical security. Like, thank you so much. And that whole engagement was like a blast. Uh, but the key is just kind of like blending in. Everyone totally thought I worked there by the end of the week. All right, so sitting in bathroom stalls. I'm not gonna go like a big time in depth in this one because I kind of like talked about this during the podcast I did. But everyone kind of like makes fun of me because I like to sit in the bathroom, right? Like when I'm on a physical social engineering engagement, I generally am like always in the case where it's like, hey, like, what do you want to accomplish? I just want to see if you can break in without getting caught. Like, somebody gave me like this awesome tip a while ago where it's like, okay, the best time to break in, and I totally agree with this, the best time to break in is before 5 p.m. Like, if you go for like 4:30, like, people are starting to take their last breaks of the day, whether it's outside like playing on their phone or like taking a cigarette break or whatever it is, right? It's like 4:30, it's almost 5 o'clock. So, anyways, the best time to get in is like right around that time because people are coming and going at the same time. But they're also like, I just want to get home and I don't give a crap like what's going on at the office. So if you can kind of get in at that same time, it's perfect, right? And you get in, it's like 5 o'clock, but there's still a lot of people like kind of like hanging out. So I like to sit in the bathroom, right? Because I can sit in the bathroom for like an hour or two, or like people are starting to like leave for the day, and then I can start kind of like doing all the bad things that I'm supposed to like accomplish for this engagement, right? And one specific case, and I talk about it on the podcast, is I had this engagement where I got in like right around 5 o'clock. I hung out in the bathroom for like 2 hours. No one was in the building. I knew it was a 24-hour building though, because I knew they had a help desk. So I'm like going in and I'm doing like all the bad things that I was supposed to do. So, anyways, it's like 1 a.m. I've been in there since like 5 p.m. It's like 1 a.m. So I knew the help desk was 24 hours. So I was like, okay, I'm gonna hang out at the help desk and be like, as like weird as I can be, so somebody will confront me and I can write like a positive for these people in the report. Long story short, I found out it's like really hard to get caught sometimes. I thought for sure I look so weird, right? But like people generally, like, this is another tip, like people generally not want to confront you, right? If you just do what normal like is considered like conforming to like normal standards for the office, like it's almost like extremely rare that somebody's going to confront you, right? So just kind of like keep that in mind from like a physical social engineering engagement perspective. So there's a lot more to the story, and I hope everyone listens to the podcast to kind of find more to that story. And I would dig more into it, but I only have like 25 minutes, so I want to make sure I have time to get through everything. Okay, running from security guards, reading people. This is like really important. Reading people is a really important part of the physical social engineering. I'm sure everyone's heard about the whole case in Iowa with the court case and stuff, and it is really important to be able to just kind of like read people. And I think you kind of get that like with experience, right? So in this case, like I was tasked to break into this like big power plant, like really big, armed guards, the whole nine, right? Um, so there's two parts to it, right? They wanted to see if I could get into their office, like the corporate area, and then the physical, like of their actual power plant. So, so their corporate office, they just want to see like, could you get in? And we had this secure room. Could you get into it? So I was able to get in, kind of use those same tricks, right? My badge, I tailgated in, but I used my badge, so I was able to get in. And then when I got in, I was like, I did all the bad things, and I love shove knives, by the way. If anyone's used a shove knife before, shove knives are like my favorite because they're like small, they fit in your pocket. And like I was able to find this like secure room, and I was able to use my shove knife to get in this closet, like across from the secure room. And there was like tons of PII in there. I was like, oh, this is awesome, you know? So I'm taking pictures and I was like, okay, I bet I could use my shove knife to get in that secure room right there because there was like a gap in the door. I'm totally oblivious to the giant magnet potentially on the other side. So I'm like trying to get in this door, and all of a sudden, like two people start coming my way. So I'm like, oh, I better get out of here. So I start walking, and I see a badge on somebody. I was like, oh man, they're a cop. I'm gonna get arrested right now, you know? Like, so I'm freaking out. But I had been in there for like a few hours. So like generally when I get in, I'm like scoping stuff out, right? So I want to know like where can I hide if I need to, like where can I go, and those types of things. So I was like, okay, I'm gonna get in the elevator. I'm gonna go downstairs. There's like a giant like gym with like a big like workout like bathroom in there. Like I could go hide in right next to the gym. So I was like, I'm gonna go like hide in this bathroom. So I go down the elevator and I come out the elevator and I'm like walking to this bathroom and I hear somebody like running. So I know it's a security guard. Right. So I was like, okay, I'm gonna make it to the bathroom, but I can't go in the stall because that'll be like super like shady. So I was like, I'm gonna use the urinal, and I really had to pee. So I was like, yeah, I don't know. I have to pee like all the time when I'm on these like engagements, I guess. But so I was like, okay, I'm gonna go in the urinal. So I'm like peeing, and the security guard comes in. He's literally like 2 inches from me, right? So I'm like, okay, you know. So I'm like peeing. I finish up peeing, and I was like, okay. So I turn around here, and at the time I was like, okay, like, and I'm the whole time I'm like peeing, and I'm like thinking like, what? Okay, how can I get out of this? Like, you know. So the guard's like, as soon as I finish peeing and flush the urinal, he's like, I need you to come with me now. And I was like, he's like really like you tell he's like really serious. And like, oh man. I was like, well, you mind if I wash my hands first? Is that okay? He's like, oh yeah, yeah, yeah. It's like as soon as like he kind of like broke off from that like super serious, like, oh, I knew I had him, right? It's like I can generally like read people really fast, and I think that's like something that's really important for like a social engineer is you need to know like when you can push the envelope and when you need to back off, right? Is like if somebody like doesn't back down, okay, then maybe I need to just say, okay, I need to back off here, and I'm caught. But in this case, I knew I had them, and it was like, oh, is there a problem? I knew I really need this job. Like, am I in trouble? Right? I feel like a horrible human being at this time, but like that's kind of my job at the same time, right? So it's like, oh, the secretary's like, no, no, there's no problem. It's just, yeah, my supervisor saw you. You know what? You were probably, that's what it is. You're new. They didn't recognize you. That's all it is. Like, okay, I really need this job, man. Did I do something wrong? It's like laying it on like super thick. Anyways, long story short, he lets me go. I hide in this closet for like 2 hours. They're looking all over for me. They can't find me. And I try to get it back in the room, and they caught me later on. And at that time, they were like, "Sir, I need you to come with me immediately." I knew I was caught, right? And that's the time where it's like, okay, here's my get out of jail free card, and let's go with that. And then then the next day I had to fly out, got into the power plant, and I'm running out of time, so I can't get into like extreme detail, but I was able to break in the power plant, kind of like using those exact same tricks, right? Blending in, right? Just kind of knowing how to read people, like knowing like when the time is, like, okay, are they gonna confront me or not? Ooh, how far can I go? Those types of things. And I was able to break in, did all the bad things. High power plant, they said, millions of homes and businesses, was able to get in. So yeah, and that's basically that right there. So got a couple minutes left and open up to any questions here. I'm just happy I made it in time because I went overtime like every time I practiced. So the power plant stuff was awesome, by the way, and everything was like two-factor. So you had to like use a card and a pin. And like every time I got like super lucky, like one of the doors was like cracked open. So I was actually able to just kind of like walk right in, and I set off like a silent alarm, I guess. So I had no idea. And like people were looking for me, and I like totally oblivious to the whole thing. So anyways, then after I got in there, I got into like a secure room because I didn't know it was like nobody used it, but like somebody was in there like filling up first aid supplies and like totally let me in. So, and my point of contact is like, there's no way anyone would let you in. And it's like, no, they totally let me in. And then like the actual room that was like super secure that they're really not supposed to let me in. I was like, oh, I'm here to do an OSHA inspection. I never thought that would fly. And they're like, come on in and look at everything, no problem. I'm like chatting them up. I'm usually pretty good with people, even though I'm not really like a people person at all. I'm like really good with people for the most part. So so yeah, I was able to get in there too, and my point of contact was like freaking out. By the way, he's like, "This is the greatest thing ever," and that's usually like most of the experience that you'll have with like a physical social engineering is like, "This is so great," right? So yeah, I'm just about up in time. Yeah, the Darknet Diaries, that's exactly what I was referring to. That Iowa case is crazy. I think most people that like involved in like pen testing and stuff is like super following that. Um, so yeah, uh, I think
We
that's
do.
about
Awesome. We do have one question from Patrick. What is your favorite Dukin song?
it. Well, it's Dockin, I think.
Dawkins, sorry.
And I don't know anything about Dockin. I know Patrick is a big Dockin fan.
Come on,
Uh,
Steve.
I love metal hair bands, by the way, and I was totally listening to some like Motley Crue and Guns N' Roses this
Breaking the
morning when I was at
chains,
the
blowing
gym.
again, any of those.
But I've never heard I don't think they actually exist. I'm pretty sure
Oh,
Patrick just made it up and like made some YouTube videos about it or something. But
a deep fake about an 80s hair metal band. I got it.
there is a question: how'd you get started doing this stuff and develop the skills? So honestly, like I got out of the military in 2008, and I my first episode of Hack 5 I saw in 2008, and I was like totally blown away. Like I was like, "Whoa, like people will pay you to do this stuff? This is awesome," you know? And that's kind of how I like develop. And then people like Patrick who have like mentored me and showed me how to use Metasploit because I honestly did not know. And me and Patrick laugh about this all the time, but I didn't know that you could use like a file for your host in Metasploit. Like I'm like, this blows my mind, right? You could use a file instead of like listing multiple IPs. That's so easy, right? So yeah, I guess Hack 5 like kind of like really inspired me, and then that's just kind of like I knew right then that's what I wanted to do with like the rest of my life. I was always like really into computer security, uh, and I got really fortunate and just was in like a couple of positions that just kind of like really helped me out, and I worked with some like super awesome people, and most of the awesome people are like a part of Layer 8 conference: Patrick, Whitney, Robbie. So, I mean, Emily, there a lot of like super cool people that are involved with Layer 8, like definitely helped me out career wise as well. So,